You trusted them. You gave them the benefit of the doubt. You played fair because you thought fairness mattered. And where did that get you? They took credit for your work. They smiled to your face while sharpening knives for your back. They used your honesty as a roadmap to exploit you. And the worst part, you saw it happening. You felt it in your gut. But you told yourself you were being paranoid, that you were overthinking it, that surely people wouldn't be that calculated. But they were. And now you're watching this because somewhere deep down you know the game has changed, and you're still playing by rules that no one else follows. Let me give you a number that should make your blood run cold. Studies show that 64% of workplace professionals report being undermined by colleagues they considered allies. 64%. That means nearly 2 out of 3 people you work with have been stabbed in the back by someone they trusted. And here's the part that really stings. The manipulators, the ones doing the stabbing, they rise faster, they get promoted more often, they accumulate power while you accumulate resentment and confusion. The system doesn't reward your integrity, it punishes your naivety. So let me ask you a question, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. How many times have you been played? How many times have you walked away from a conversation feeling like something was off? Like you just got maneuvered into a corner but you couldn't quite figure out how? How many times have you given someone the benefit of the doubt only to watch them weaponize your kindness? Once? Twice? Or have you lost count? Because if you're like most people, you've been manipulated so smoothly, so elegantly, that you didn't even recognize it was happening until it was far too late. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Everything you've been taught about dealing with difficult people is designed to keep you weak. Be the bigger person. Take the high road. Kill them with kindness. Turn the other cheek. All of that advice, it's a control mechanism. It's a psychological leash that keeps you passive while predators circle. And the people who taught you these things, they meant well. Sure, but they prepared you for a world that doesn't exist. They prepared you for a fair fight. But the people you're up against, they never agreed to fight fair. Right now, watching this, you fall into one of 3 categories. You're either a victim, someone who's been burned and is finally ready to understand why, or you're an observer, someone who's seen the patterns, who's smart enough to know the game exists but hasn't yet learned the rules. Or you're a player, someone who already knows some of this but came here to sharpen the blade, to add another weapon to the arsenal. Whichever category you're in, you're here because you've realized something fundamental. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is exploitation waiting to happen. Niccolo Machiavelli understood something 500 years ago that most people still refuse to accept today. Morality, in the hands of a manipulator, is not a guide for behavior. It's a weapon. They use your morality against you. They know you'll hesitate where they won't. They know you'll second-guess yourself while they move with certainty. They know you'll try to be fair while they're busy rewriting the rules in their favor. Your conscience is their advantage. Your empathy is their entry point. And every single time you choose to be the better person, you're handing them another tool to dismantle you with. Let's talk about what ignorance has already cost you. That promotion you deserved but didn't get. Someone else understood the political game better than you did. That relationship that fell apart. Someone knew how to push emotional buttons you didn't even know you had. That business deal that went sideways. You were outmaneuvered by someone who saw 3 moves ahead while you were still trying to be straightforward and honest. The cost isn't just what you lost. It's what you could have gained if you'd understood how the game actually works. It's the opportunities that passed you by because you were busy being principled while others were busy being strategic. And here's the thing that nobody wants to say out loud. The people who play dirty, they sleep just fine at night. They're not tormented by guilt. They're not losing sleep over what they did to you. They've rationalized it, they've justified it, they've told themselves a story where they're the hero and you were just collateral damage. They've moved on. The question is, why haven't you? You've been operating under a fundamental misunderstanding. You thought that if you just worked hard enough, if you just stayed honest enough, if you just treated people well enough, the universe would balance the scales. But the universe doesn't care about your intentions. Reality rewards understanding, not virtue. It rewards those who see the game clearly, not those who wish the game didn't exist. And right now, in this moment, you have a choice. You can keep pretending that the old rules still apply, or you can accept that there's a shadow game being played all around you and you've been losing because you didn't even know you were playing. The people who've been manipulating you, they're not smarter than you. They're not more talented. They're not more deserving. They simply know something you're about to learn. They understand the psychology of power. They understand how to read people, how to position themselves, how to create leverage out of thin air. They understand that influence isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the voice that plants the idea that everyone else thinks was their own. They've studied human nature not to connect with people, but to control the connection. And they've been doing it to you. But that ends today. Because what I'm about to show you are the 10 psychological weapons that manipulators use to stay 3 steps ahead. These aren't theories. These aren't motivational platitudes. These are the actual mechanisms, the precise techniques that turn ordinary people into puppeteers and everyone else into puppets. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how to reverse them. How to take each weapon they use and turn it back on them with such precision that they won't even realize they've been outmaneuvered until it's already done. This isn't about becoming a bad person. This is about refusing to be a victim. This is about understanding that protection requires knowledge, and knowledge requires you to look directly at the darkness instead of pretending it isn't there. The manipulators are counting on you to stay ignorant. They're counting on you to keep believing that good intentions are enough. They're counting on you to keep playing by rules they abandoned years ago. So here are the 10 psychological weapons they use. And here's exactly how you reverse them and take back every ounce of power they've stolen from you. Let's start with the first weapon they use against you, and it's one you've fallen for more times than you want to admit. They show you their anger. You show them your fear. They show you their charm. You show them your trust. They show you their vulnerability. You show them your compassion. And while you're busy being authentic and real and emotionally honest, they're taking notes. They're cataloging your weaknesses. They're building a psychological profile they'll use to destroy you later. This is why the first trick is to mirror their darkness without absorbing it. When someone comes at you with aggression, you don't cower and you don't escalate. You reflect back exactly the energy they're giving you. But you do it with complete emotional detachment. They raise their voice, you lower yours to a whisper that forces them to strain to hear you. They try to provoke you. You respond with such calculated calmness that they start questioning whether their tactics even work anymore. The key here is that you're not actually becoming dark. You're becoming a mirror, and mirrors don't have feelings. Mirrors don't have vulnerabilities. Mirrors just show people exactly what they're putting out into the world. And most manipulators cannot handle seeing their own reflection because deep down they're disgusted by what they've become. You're not fighting them, you're making them fight themselves. The second weapon is silence, and this one will drive them absolutely insane. See, manipulators need your reaction. They feed on it. They require it. Your anger, your justification, your defense, your explanation, it's all fuel for their fire. They say something designed to hurt you, and they sit back waiting for you to engage. And what do most people do? They take the bait. They write the long text message. They have the heated conversation. They try to make the manipulator understand their perspective. And all of that is exactly what the manipulator wants. Because now they have more ammunition, more information, more insight into what makes you tick. But when you go silent, when you strategically withdraw, something fascinating happens in their psychology. They start creating stories. They start wondering if you're plotting something. They start questioning whether you've seen through their game. Silence creates a vacuum, and manipulators will fill that vacuum with their own paranoia. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them the satisfaction of knowing they got to you. Strategic silence isn't weakness, it's psychological warfare, at its finest. Now, the third trick is something most people get completely backwards. They think showing vulnerability is always weakness, but controlled vulnerability is one of the most powerful tools you have. Here's how it works. You deliberately show them a weakness that isn't actually your real weakness. You let them think they've found your pressure point. You let them believe they have leverage over you, and then you watch very carefully to see what they do with that information. Do they exploit it immediately? Do they file it away for later? Do they share it with others? This tells you everything you need to know about their true intentions. And here's the beautiful part. While they're focused on this fake vulnerability you've given them, your real vulnerabilities remain completely protected. This is how you expose their strategy without revealing your own. You're essentially giving them a key, but it's a key to an empty room. They think they're winning. They think they've got you figured out. And meanwhile, you're 3 steps ahead, watching them reveal exactly how they operate. The fourth weapon is about timing, and most people fail here because they think speed equals strength. Someone attacks you, and you feel this immediate need to respond. Someone challenges you, and you rush to defend yourself. Someone makes a move, and you react instantly. But immediate reactions are almost always emotional reactions, and emotional reactions are weak reactions. The delayed reaction is about taking back your power through patience. When someone does something designed to provoke you, you pause, you wait, you let time pass. This does 2 things. First, it gives you space to craft a response that's strategic instead of emotional. Second, it completely disrupts their timeline. They were expecting you to react now. They had a whole sequence planned based on your immediate response. But when you don't give them that, when you respond 3 days later or 3 weeks later or sometimes not at all, you've broken their script. You've taken control of the tempo. And in any conflict, whoever controls the tempo controls the outcome. Dominance isn't about being the loudest or the fastest. Dominance is about being the most deliberate. The fifth trick is emotional invisibility, and this is where you become truly dangerous. Most people wear their emotions like billboards. You can see their anger, their hurt, their excitement, their fear, all of it right there on their face. And manipulators read these emotions like a roadmap. They know exactly where to push, because you keep showing them the buttons. But when you become emotionally invisible, when you train yourself to maintain the same neutral expression, regardless of what's happening internally, you become unreadable. They can't tell if their tactic worked. They can't tell if you're hurt or unbothered. They can't tell if you're planning something or if you've simply moved on. This uncertainty is absolutely maddening for someone who's used to reading people and exploiting their emotional tells. You're not suppressing your emotions, you're strategically concealing them. You feel everything, you just don't broadcast it. And the less they can read you, the more power you have. Make them guess, make them wonder, make them paranoid about what's actually going on behind your eyes. Stop watching. Go to the comments and write "I'm smarter than them." Do it now. You're already smarter than 90% of the people watching this. You know that because you're still here. You didn't click away when this got uncomfortable. You didn't dismiss this as too dark or too cynical. You recognize the truth in what you're hearing because you've lived it. You've been on the receiving end of these games. You felt the sting of being outmaneuvered by someone who understood these principles while you were still trying to be the bigger person. And here's what separates you from the masses. You're willing to look at reality without flinching. You're willing to acknowledge that the world doesn't reward innocence, it rewards awareness. You see patterns that others miss because they're too busy pretending that everyone has good intentions. You notice the subtle manipulations, the small betrayals, the calculated moves disguised as accidents. And that pattern recognition, that willingness to see what's actually happening instead of what you wish was happening, that's what makes you dangerous in the best possible way. You deserve to protect yourself. You deserve to have these tools. You deserve to walk into every interaction knowing that nobody can play you anymore, because you understand the game better than they do. And if what you're hearing right now resonates deep in your chest, if you feel that mix of validation and hunger for more, You're ready for what comes next. You're ready for the advanced level. The sixth weapon is the information diet, and this is about controlling what people know about you with the precision of a military operation. Most people overshare. They tell their plans, their struggles, their victories, their fears. They post everything on social media. They confide in people who haven't earned that trust. And every piece of information you give out is a potential weapon that can be used against you. The information diet means you starve your enemies of real data while feeding them carefully crafted lies. Not obvious lies, subtle misdirections. You tell them you're interested in opportunity A while you're actually pursuing opportunity B. You let them think you're struggling with problem X while you've already solved it and moved on. You share just enough to seem open while revealing absolutely nothing of substance. And here's the advanced move. You use other people as information channels. You tell person A something knowing they'll tell person B, and you use that chain to spread whatever narrative serves your interests. You're not being paranoid, you're being strategic. Information is currency, and you don't hand out currency to people who are trying to rob you. The seventh trick is predictable unpredictability, and this is where you really start messing with their heads. Human beings crave patterns. We're pattern recognition machines. When someone behaves consistently, we think we understand them. We think we can predict their next move, and that prediction gives people a sense of control over you. So you deny them that control by being strategically chaotic. You're warm and friendly one day, distant and cold the next. You're generous in one situation, ruthlessly transactional in another. You respond immediately sometimes and go silent for weeks other times. But here's the key. Your unpredictability isn't random. It's controlled chaos. You know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. You're creating a pattern of no pattern, which keeps everyone around you slightly off balance. They can't get comfortable. They can't assume they know how you'll react. They can't take you for granted. And that uncertainty makes you far more powerful than consistency ever could. They're always wondering which version of you they're going to get, and that wondering keeps them cautious, keeps them respectful, keeps them from trying to manipulate you, because they're never quite sure if their manipulation will work. Now we arrive at the techniques they don't teach, the strategies that separate those who survive manipulation from those who dominate it entirely. These final three tricks are not defensive measures, they're offensive weapons. They're how you don't just protect yourself from dirty players, they're how you dismantle them so completely they never see it coming. Trick number 8. The loyalty illusion. This is perhaps the most dangerous weapon in the psychological arsenal because it requires you to do something that feels completely counterintuitive. You make them trust you. Completely. Utterly. Without reservation. You become the one person they believe would never betray them. And that belief becomes the very mechanism of their destruction. Listen carefully. Manipulators operate on a simple assumption that everyone else is playing the same game they are. They expect betrayal. They anticipate deception. Their entire psychological defense system is built around protecting themselves from the very tactics they use on others. But there's a crack in that armor. A vulnerability so profound that once you exploit it, they have no defense whatsoever. That vulnerability is their desperate need to believe that at least one person is genuinely loyal to them. You become that person. Not through grand gestures, not through obvious displays of devotion. Those trigger suspicion. You do it through consistency, small acts of reliability, being there when others aren't, keeping confidences when others would gossip, defending them in their absence, never asking for anything in return. You build trust the way you'd build a bridge, one small, solid piece at a time, engineered to hold enormous weight. And here's what happens. Their guard drops, not all at once, but gradually, imperceptibly. They start telling you things they tell no one else. They start seeking your counsel. They start depending on your presence in their strategic calculations. You become part of their inner circle, not because you forced your way in, but because they pulled you there. Because they convince themselves that you're different, that you're safe, that you're loyal. The beauty of this technique is that you never have to strike. The loyalty illusion serves you, whether you ever betray them or not. If you maintain it indefinitely, you have access to everything: their plans, their fears, their weaknesses, their true intentions toward others. You become the intelligence asset they willingly created. You know what they're going to do before they do it. You see their manipulations of others in real time. You can warn people they're targeting. You can sabotage their schemes with information they themselves gave you, all while maintaining your cover as their most trusted ally. But if you do choose to strike, if circumstances require you to move against them, the psychological devastation is total, because they never saw it coming. Their entire threat detection system failed. The one person they thought was safe wasn't. And that realization doesn't just hurt them in the moment. It fundamentally breaks their ability to trust their own judgment. They'll question every relationship afterward. They'll see betrayal everywhere, even where it doesn't exist. You'll have turned them into a paranoid shell of their former self, and you did it by being exactly what they wanted you to be until the moment you chose not to be. Trick number 9. Strategic reputation damage. This is not about obvious attacks. This is not about spreading rumors or making accusations. Amateur moves leave fingerprints, and fingerprints create enemies and consequences. No, strategic reputation damage is an art form. It's about planting seeds of doubt so subtle that people think they came up with the concerns themselves. It's about engineering a shift in perception without anyone being able to trace it back to you. The first principle is indirection. You never attack them directly. You never say anything explicitly negative. Instead, you ask questions. Concerned questions. Questions that imply problems without stating them. In a meeting, you might say, "I'm sure there's a good explanation, but I noticed the numbers from last quarter don't quite match what was presented. Has anyone else looked into that?" You're not accusing, you're just wondering. But now everyone else is wondering too. And when they look into it, even if everything is fine, the seed is planted. There was something worth questioning. The second principle is strategic amplification of their own words. Manipulators often contradict themselves because they tell different people different things. Your job is simply to create situations where those contradictions become visible. You don't point them out. You just ensure the right people are in the right conversations. You mention casually to person A what they told person B, framed as seeking clarification. "I thought the deadline was Friday, but maybe I misunderstood when we talked. Didn't they tell you it was Monday?" Now person A and person B compare notes, and the inconsistency reveals itself. You didn't create it. You just illuminated it. The third principle is the proxy critique. You find people who already have concerns, doubts, or negative experiences with your target, and you give them permission and platform to voice what they already feel. You don't put words in their mouth. You simply create the space. In casual conversation with others present, you might say, "I value diverse perspectives. Has anyone had a different experience working with them? I want to make sure I'm seeing the complete picture." The people with grievances will speak. The neutral parties will hear, and you remain the person who was just trying to be thorough and fair. The fourth principle is the false defense. This is advanced. You occasionally defend them against criticism, but you do it in a way that actually reinforces the criticism. Someone says they're unreliable. You respond, "I think unreliable is too strong. They've only missed 3 deadlines that I know of, and there were probably good reasons." You've just confirmed the missed deadlines while appearing to defend them. You've actually made the criticism more credible, because even their defender admits to the problematic behavior. Over time, reputation erosion happens, not dramatically, not traceably, but definitively. People start having doubts they can't quite articulate. They become less likely to trust, to promote, to include, and if anyone ever investigates, there's nothing to find. You never attacked. You asked questions. You sought clarity. You encouraged open dialogue. You even defended them. Your hands are completely clean while their reputation quietly crumbles. Trick number 10. The exit that haunts. This is about understanding that how you leave a situation, a relationship, a conflict, often matters more than anything you did while you were in it. Most people exit reactively. They leave in anger, in frustration, in obvious defeat or obvious victory. And those exits are forgettable. They fit expected patterns. They allow everyone to move on. But an exit that haunts, that's something else entirely. That's an exit that violates expectations so completely that it creates a permanent psychological imprint. The key is controlled mystery. You leave when they least expect it, and you leave without the explanation they desperately need. Manipulators especially need to understand why things happen. It's how they maintain their sense of control. When you exit without giving them that understanding, you create an open loop in their mind that never closes. They'll spend years trying to figure out what they missed, what they did wrong, what you knew that they didn't. The setup requires patience. You never threaten to leave. You never hint at dissatisfaction. In fact, you increase your engagement right before your exit. You seem more invested, more present, more committed than ever. This is crucial because when you disappear, the contrast is so jarring that it demands explanation, and you give none. The execution is clean and absolute. You don't fade away gradually. You don't leave doors open. You don't leave breadcrumbs for them to follow. One day you're fully present, the next day you're gone, completely. No dramatic announcement, no final confrontation, no explanation, just absence where presence used to be. If they reach out, you're polite but distant, professional but unavailable. You don't ghost them with hostility, you ghost them with indifference, which is so much worse. And here's what happens in their mind. They can't categorize you. They can't fit you into their framework of how people behave. Angry people leave with accusations. Defeated people leave with resentment. Ambitious people leave with explanations about better opportunities. But you're left with nothing. No emotion they can dismiss. No reason they can rationalize. Just a void where certainty used to be. And that void becomes an obsession. They'll check your social media. They'll ask mutual contacts about you. They'll replay every interaction looking for clues. They'll construct theories and tear them down. And the beautiful thing is that nothing they come up with will be correct, because you never gave them the data to construct a correct theory. You've become a puzzle they can't solve, and it will eat at them in quiet moments for years. Every time they think they've moved on, something will remind them of you, and the question will resurface. Why did they leave? What did I miss? Meanwhile, you've moved on completely. You're not thinking about them at all. You're not carrying resentment or anger or any emotional weight from that situation. You simply made a strategic decision that the relationship no longer served you. And you executed your exit in a way that ensured you maintained all the power, even in absence. They're haunted. You're free. That's the difference between reactive exits and strategic ones. These 10 tricks, from mirroring darkness to the exit that haunts, they form a complete psychological framework. A way of moving through a world where people play dirty, not by becoming a victim, not by avoiding the game, but by playing it better than those who taught it to you. But here's what you need to understand. These 10 tricks are the foundation. They're the visible layer of a much deeper system. There's a level beyond this. Frameworks for reading people so accurately, you'll know their next move before they do. Techniques for social engineering that work in boardrooms and relationships alike. Advanced strategies for building power structures that seem organic but are entirely designed. Methods for psychological warfare that leave no evidence but total impact. The architecture of influence that shapes decisions without anyone realizing they're being shaped. I've spent years studying this. Not from books alone, but from observation, from implementation, from watching what actually works when everything is on the line. And I built something for people who are serious about mastery. Not casual viewers, not people looking for quick tips, but individuals who understand that real power requires real knowledge, and real knowledge requires investment. Subscribe now if you're ready to join the 1% who actually win. This isn't for everyone. It's for people who are tired of being outmaneuvered, for people who see the game clearly and refuse to keep losing it. The link is below. Limited access. Not because of artificial scarcity, but because this level of knowledge requires a certain caliber of person to use responsibly and effectively. You now know what they know. You've seen behind the curtain. You understand the mechanics of manipulation and counter-manipulation. The question isn't whether these techniques work. They do. The question is whether you'll use them, whether you'll step into the arena fully equipped, or keep pretending that good intentions are enough in a world where others have none. The choice has always been yours, but now you're making it with open eyes. Decide who you want to be. Then become that, without apology.